And if you guys like, you can turn on a camera, just the two of you today, so we can have maybe a more interactive class.
Swastik, you can go ahead. Recording शुरू हो गया.
My desktop doesn't have a camera.
All right, no worries. So, welcome to the third session of the AV editing class in training grounds. So, we're going to start with today's session. We have the After Effects interface in front of here, in front of us here. Okay. So, I'm going to click on new composition as always. I'm going to make a new composition. Let's say let's say session 3 for now, right? So width is going to be 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p, right? Frame rate is 60 frames, and let's make the duration around 1 minute. Okay. So first, let's go over anchor points. Yeah. So for anchor points, suppose I make a new shape. This is a square. Okay. Let's make this a square. I'll align it to the center. I'll give it a color. Let's say 16 or something, right? Okay. So when I click it, you can see that this icon over here, this shape, this circle with four nodes, right? This is what is called as an anchor point. This is the anchor of the shape or whatever object or item you are using in After Effects. Almost every single item in After Effects has an anchor point. Yeah. And this anchor point is the part of the object or the item or the layer in After Effects which weighs it down, or which basically is the center of around which it rotates or it moves. Suppose the best example of this is how it rotates. Okay. Suppose I set it to the center over here, and to precisely move it, you can hold down shift so that it only moves, it snaps. Okay. Without pressing shift, it just moves freely. But once you press and hold down shift, so it snaps. Okay. I'm gonna set it to the center. Now suppose if I rotate, okay, I'm gonna click R to put up rotation. Now you can see it's rotating around its center, which is the place where the anchor point is. But suppose if I were to click Y is the button which brings up this icon, okay, this tool which helps us to move the anchor point. I'm gonna move it to the top left, and now if I rotate, you can see that it's rotating around its top left part. This works in reference to keyframes as well. If the anchor point is over there, I'm gonna set a keyframe, so it's just gonna move like that. Okay. Okay. So let's do the same thing maybe with positioning. Okay. So let's change the rotation back to zero, back to 10. So suppose I want to change location, right? And if I set the anchor point to this, okay, I'm gonna set a keyframe at 0. Let's make it move to the right. Right. So as you can see, the movement that After Effects shows, the preview of the movement that's going to take place is the line from point A to point B along the anchor point, right? So as you can see, the animation moves from left to the right. Okay. Now you won't see a difference until and unless I change the anchor point. If I change the anchor point to the top at the first keyframe, now it's gonna move like that. Because what's happening is that before earlier when I had set the anchor point, I had shown its position over here, and now when I've switched it, when I've taken it above, now it's moving from top to bottom. So if I want to, update the anchor point, I'm just gonna delete all the keyframes, and I'm gonna have to keyframe it again. So whenever you're making keyframes, be sure to see where the anchor point is. It is a very essential part. It can change the animation that you're making, right? Look at that. Now it's gonna move from. So this is a good example. Any doubts, Vivan? Are you clear with the term? Is it clear?
Yeah, I'm clear.
Summer?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So for today, I don't think I talked about 3D workspace last time, right? Did I talk about 3D? I'm pretty sure I did not talk
I
about it.
don't think so.
Yeah.
No, you
So
didn't.
today we're going to talk about a little about 3D. So earlier, after we did not have that many 3D capabilities, but as time has moved on, people have started doing a lot of complex 3D animations in After Effects, and it adds a whole new dynamic to the things. Okay, so what we can do is when you're thinking of 3D, you need to think about it like you do in real life. Okay, so any 3D scene is going to have a camera. Okay, that camera is going to capture the motion that you do in front of it. Like we shoot movies, we need a camera to shoot those movies, right? So what I'm going to do is go ahead and right click on new. Okay. You need to right click over here and click on a camera. Okay. So there are two types of cameras in After Effects. There is one node camera and there's a two node camera. I would, it's a little complicated to understand and to explain, but what I would say is go for the one node camera for now. Okay. And you don't need to change any presets. There'll be 50 millimeters. You can change the name of the camera over here. Okay. I can just set it to new camera, whatever. For now, let's just do camera one. Okay. So now a new camera has been formed. You won't see a lot of difference, but one thing that you can see is over here, classic 3D. We have an option to, we have a drop down basically with three options: classic 3D, advanced 3D, and cinema 4D, right? We have another option which has all these different types of views that you can look at it with. And you have this one view, two view, and four view option. Okay, we're going to talk a little about these things. So first of all, if you've done this and it shows advanced 3D or cinema 4D, I would recommend to put it to classic 3D, which is the most. So basically, this is the rendering engine that it's using, a render option, right? This is so you can either use classic 3D, advanced 3D, or cinema 4D. So classic 3D is the most stable across any other item you use. If I go to advanced 3D or cinema 4D, they have some capabilities and limitations in some aspects, but classic 3D works the best in my opinion, right? In most cases. But yes, there might be some cases where you would require advanced 3D or cinema 4D. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a, let's say a rectangle at the top. Okay. Then I'm going to press Q again. So by pressing Q again and again, I can cycle through the shapes, right? As you can look. So now I'm going to make an ellipse, or let's make a circle by pressing Shift, right? So now I have this. Okay. And let's give it, maybe let's change its color. Let's make it a little dark green, right? And let's make another shape. Let's make a pentagon, right? Give it another color. Let's give it blue. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is at the bottom over here, you have toggle switches slash modes. Okay. You need to press this button. And once you do, you will see these three options. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to drag from the top to the bottom to set all these layers to 3D. And once you set them to 3D, you will once again, there will be no visual change as of yet. Okay. But once I start to rotate the camera, okay, I'm going to press R on the camera. So now instead of when we rotate a normal object, you can see we only have rotation. But when you're talking about 3D, I'm guessing you guys know about the 3D axis. If you've studied that in 10th class, you know, X, Y, and Z. Okay. So X is like this, Y, and Z is in the 3D space basically. So as you can see, we have X rotation, Y rotation, and Z rotation. So if I change X rotation, it's going to change it along the X axis. Okay. Y rotation is going to change it along the Y axis and Z along the Z axis. Okay. If you see if I click on them, you can see the Y axis, X axis, and Z axis of the object. Z axis in this context is talking about how close it is to the camera. I can bring it even. So now, as you can see, once again, this rectangle is over here, but when I'm moving this, it's moving. Okay, so the disjoint. Okay, so what I need to do is this is basically its new anchor point. So I'm gonna press Y to reposition the anchor point, and I'm gonna bring it to the rectangle. Now, as you can see, I can move it forward or backward. Okay. Now, if I rotate the camera, okay, I can rotate the objects. Now, as you can see, it's moving in 3D space, which is not possible before. It was only rotating in a 2D form, the circle. But now it's moving in a 3D space. It's moving in a 3D manner like real objects do. So, but as you can see, the stream it does not have any, still does not have any depth or anything like a 3D object, but yes, it does move like one. So you can think of it like, you know, a 2D object in a 3D space, but actually it's 3D object, but it acts like a 2D object because it does not have any depth, right? So, okay. So when you click on the drop down menu of a camera, you will see an option called as camera option. This is going to have, you know, a lot of options about zoom, depth of field, focus distance, aperture, blur level. If you've done the filmmaking class, you might know something about, you know, how this works, how a lot of this works. You can change the focus distance, bring them in focus or out of focus. You can turn on depth of field, right? So I'll show you a good example of this in a video I had done. You'll see a good example of it. Okay. I go over here and okay. So now this was moving in 3D space, right? 3D. Entire thing is 3D, right? Because it's moving in a 3D space. It's even acting on the Z axis as well, right? So now an example of depth of field, how it works in cameras. This is the text that is ahead is coming into focus rather than the text that is behind, which goes out of focus, right? So basically what I'm doing is I'm moving the camera behind. I'm moving the camera, I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back, and as I'm taking it back, new text appears and the old one goes out of focus. Okay. So this is a good example of how things work in the 3D space. So what I can show it to you, you can even move it from here, but directly from here, or you can just click on the drop down menu, go into transform, right? Now you have the X rotation, Y rotation, Z rotation. Yeah. You can even keyframe these. You can keyframe almost anything in After Effects. Almost everything and anything in After Effects can be, keyframed. I can change the zoom level of the camera, but I would say just keep it at 0, right? Okay. Just give it a default amount. Okay. You can change depth of field on or off. You can change the focus distance. So if I turn the focus distance to 0, you will not see any objects, because when it's at 0, you cannot see anything, right? But as I increase, you can see that it's coming into focus slowly, slowly, and then finally it comes into focus, right? So now if I set the focus distance to around, let's say, 1,000 pixels, right? And I turn depth of field on. Okay, 1,000. And now if I were to, move the position of the camera from this point, and if I bring it forward, you'll see that they slowly and slowly they come into focus. This is because the focus distance is short and it needs to come into close proximity for it to focus on them, right? So a very, very good, a very efficient, I would say a very productive method to work with 3D space is when you get two views. Okay. So I'm gonna press over here. I'm gonna select two views. Okay. So now you can see a view from the top of how it looks, how this composition looks from the top. Okay. So over here I have my camera, right? If I change it over here, it moves, right? It's going back and forth, right? I can select my object. I can see where it actually is in the 3D space, right? I can move them forward or behind. Or basically change almost about everything, but this helps me get perspective, right? So now as you can see that the rectangle is behind these circle, right? So if I bring it forward, you can see that it comes ahead. I can change the camera position, right? You can either see it from the top, back, right, bottom, front. But the most, I would say it changes from, it depends on what you're working on. But top is the one that would help you the most in positioning things. Because I can see that this is way behind than both of these. And if I want to increase the size, instead of bringing it closer to the camera, I can just increase its scale, right? So now, once again, as you can see, if I'm increasing the scale, it's moving. Why is that happening? Can anyone tell me why is it moving when I'm increasing its scale?
It is coming towards you.
Can I, can it repeat?
It is coming towards the screen because
Yeah. Why is it coming towards the screen and why is it not staying in place?
for
Because
its
it, as you can
anchor
see, it's
point
moving
is
towards the left, right? Yeah, exactly. The anchor point. Because the anchor point is over here. If I just need to move it to the center, okay. Once I set it to the center, as you can see, it stays in place, right?
Yeah.
But another problem, because the anchor point now, I'm not able to see this in the 2D space, but once I see it from the top, I can see that the anchor point is way ahead of the object. So now I can use this to position it perfectly on the object. So now when because before, earlier when I, now, if I was just in one view, right, you cannot see that it's moving behind. But once I go on through two views, you can see that as I increase the size, it's going, behind, it's going backwards. So to fix this, I can actually see that my anchor point is way, forward. It's way into the distance of where the object is. So I can just bring it to this object. And now when I increase the size, it stays in place. So it's a little complicated. You need to think about these small little things when you're working in 3D spaces. But yes, this helps you get a lot of perspective. Okay.
Could you tell us how to open the second that
Okay.
camera view?
You need to go over here, change one view to two views. Okay. And then select top from here. You want any doubts?
Not really.
Okay. So should I move ahead? Have you guys tried it in After Effects?
Or just trying?
Okay. Okay. Should I move ahead now?
Sure.
Okay. So we have few tools in After Effects that help us to move around in the 3D space, right? At the top, you can see these three options. This helps you to rotate, not actually rotate, but actually move around the 3D space by dragging it. Okay. You can use this to, move your camera. This is basically changing the position of the camera. And this will take us 1 second. Okay. So what this is basically doing? It's moving the position of the camera. Okay, this is moving it along the z-axis. This is moving it along the you can see the x and y-axis, and this is it's basically changing its. I would say I need to check what is changing, but once you go to transform, you can see it's changing its orientation, right? So these are just tools. You can directly do it from here as well. But yeah, these help you to, these just help, it's just a better way to do it, or maybe a more intuitive way to do it. Okay. So, okay. So this is the basics of the 3D space, right? I mean, there's a lot of things in 3D space, a lot of animations that you can do. But this was the basic thing. Depth of field, you can use that. You can change the blur level of things. You can change, how those blurs come up. This is what is mostly used. But yes, there are still a lot of things that I cannot cover in one class because I need to cover other topics as well. Okay. The next thing that we're going to talk about. Do you guys want to know more about 3D, or should I move on to something that is used a lot, that people who use After Effects for a lot of things, use it a lot of times for that? What do you guys want to do?
Maybe you could do some more 3D, then move on to it
Okay.
for like 15 more minutes, maybe.
So let's do a simple maybe animation in 3D. Okay, let's talk about materials in 3D. Okay. So what I can do is go into shape and I can go to material option. Okay. Now, once I go into material option, you will see a lot of you'll see a lot of properties that you can play around with. The first one is casting shadows. Basically, when this is going to get really complex. Okay, let's talk about geometry options. So as you can see, when I go into geometry options, I have an option to change the renderer over here. Now, this is what I was talking about, the renderer, classic 3D, advanced 3D, and cinema 4D. So as you can see, the 3D objects are not looking very 3D right now. To give them depth and to give them, some proportions, we need to actually change the renderer from from classic 3D to advanced 3D, which helps us to get geometry options. Now with this, we can actually give depth. As you can see now, my pentagon has depth. Now it's the actual 3D object. You can see that it's moving. It's reacting to the light. When I turn it left or right, I can, rotate it along its z-axis, along its, y-axis. I can do the same thing with, I can do the same thing with the circle. I can make it into a cylinder, right? And now I can go ahead in the material options and now I can play around with these settings. So right now it is 100% metal. It's acting like a metallic object, right? That's why it's shining light this way. I can change the specular shyness. So this is basically changing the shininess of the object, how shiny it is. Now, once I include it, you can see that there's a little bit, it looks a little like a proper how a metal object would look, right? Look at that. Now it's completely like a metal object. Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
Are you able to do this in After Effects yourself?
Yes.
Okay. You can play around with these properties. Basically, After Effects is a lot about playing around with things until you figure them out. It's a lot about that. I can basically now, because these things are working in 3D, and like I said, when you're working in 3D, you need to think about how you would think about things in real life. So I can go ahead and click on new and I can make a light. Now this light is going to basically it's going to be the light source. So now as I change the light around, you can see I can increase the size of the light or the scale. Okay, sorry. I can change the intensity of the light. As I increase the intensity, it gets brighter. I can change the color of the light, right? I can um, I can increase its radius. And to get a better view of things, I can go into two view and I'm going to look where my light is positioned.
Why did
This is basic.
everything turn black?
because the radius is a lot, and I would say the fall off distance. I need to change the fall off distance. And a red light is a lot more, I would say a lot more darker than when I'm using white light. Look at that, how it changes, right? So I either need to increase the intensity for when I'm changing it to other colors like red or dark red. Now as I bring it
Okay.
closer to other objects, you understand what I'm talking about now?
Yeah.
So it's basically how you would work in like Blender, because Blender is specifically made for 3D, and I'm not gonna tell you to make you know proper 3D scenes in After Effects. This is just for basic or maybe playing around with 2D shapes. When you have UI screens, you can move them around like I did in the video, the example video I showed you guys. So there's a lot of things that you can do. I would say just tinker around, go into the geometry options, try changing your renderer, see what difference it makes. So
Can
now
we
let's move
import
on to
Blender objects?
you cannot import Blender objects because those are Blender files, but you can import OBJ files.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So now let's talk a little about roto brushing. Okay. Now roto brush is a very, very important concept that a lot of people use in After Effects, and I would say it is one of the best features of After Effects. I'll show you how it actually works, how I've used it in videos as well. Okay, I'll give you guys a very good example. So basically, we had a competition right now. For that, we had to make a promo of a news channel. Okay. So I made the promo and I used a lot of roto brushing for that. And this will also give you an idea of how an actual timeline in After Effects looks like. Okay. So I will show you the final video first, and then I'll break it down for you guys. Um, so in YouTube. All right. So a lot of times you have to do in After Effects is you have to take normal footage, just basic plain footage, and add a lot of effects to it to make it engaging, to make it interesting, and add a lot of post effects to it. So this was a competition where we had to basically make a parody news channel types and make a news channel type of thing, and create a promotional video for that. So the first step was to shoot everything on a camera, just just plain video, and then I took that entire thing into After Effects and made this entire promotional video. So I'll let you guys have a look, and then I'll break it down and how I made it in After Effects.
Swastik,
The audio is mute.
audio नहीं आ रही
Audio
हाँ
not. Yeah.
Should I replay or should I continue?
Continue.
Just continue.
Okay.
Moment to appreciate the teachers who inspired us to be who we are, whether it be through a maths lecture or a clay modeling lesson.
And for the last segment of the day, we have our career reality check, where our alumni will give you the current status about the job market.
Every morning we bring to you the forecast, not of the weather but for all the events happening in school that particular day. Whether it be a hot and happening day in MP Hall or a stormy day amidst finals, we've got you covered.
Furthermore, living in an age where most of your information comes from social media, it is crucial to know the truth, for which we have our debunkers, where the reality of your news gets exposed.
Okay. Okay. So basically, this is going to give you a good example of how I use 3D workspace and also rotor brushing. So I'll first show you the 3D part. Um, if you look at this part, this is entirely made in 3D. So if you can, I'll just give you guys a look of how an actual composition looks as well. So as you can see, a lot of compositions inside the main composition. This is what helps you to structure. It's a very complex project, but even after that, there's not a lot of layers, only around like what 41 layers. So I'm going to open this composition because this has the 3D, yeah, the entire thing in 3D. So you can see if I change to the top view, look at that, how everything is positioned. This video is supposed to be ahead of this, look at that. So, and if I move this, you can see that the camera is moving towards, you can see this triangle, right? That is the camera, that symbolizes the camera. Does both of you understand what I'm talking about? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how, this is the good example of how we use 3D, but obviously you can do a lot more. So let me show you how I use roto brush. So if I go into this composition once again, I go into the speaking video, right? The plain video is this. I've got these plain videos and I've converted them into what you're seeing in the final video. So to do this, I have used roto brush. What roto brush does is it removes the background. So this is very different from using green screen because right over here in the video, we do not have a green screen. So instead of, if I had a green screen, I would have just replaced the green color. But because I don't have a green screen, I need to basically tell the software what part of the video does it need to take and what part of it does it need to remove. So you basically need to guide After Effects and it does the rest of the work for you. I'll show you how to do it. But basically when you're done, it gives you this kind of output. And then you can put it in front of a background like this. So let me try to do this thing again. Okay, I'll name this as stagey. We'll take a clip. We'll take let's take this clip. So as you can see, we have this clip over here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. Let's shorten it down to let's say 5 seconds because roto brushing is a very demanding thing. It does take a lot of system resources. So I would say keep it to the minimum if it's if it's not necessary. I'm going to select it once again. I'm going to select this button over here. Okay, the second last button. And after selecting the button, I'm going to click on this area, double click. Okay, and as you can see, my cursor has now changed. It's this green plus button. What this works like is it actually works like a paintbrush. So I can basically move this around, and now you can see that it has selected this boy Karthik over here. Okay, it has selected the table, and now if I want to select her as well, I'm going to move it, and you can see that little by little it's selecting. Now I can refine this. Suppose I don't want this part of the chair to be there. So what I'm going to do to decrease the size, I'm going to hold down Control. And then I'm going to drag down. This decreases the size. Now I'm going to hold Alt. As you can see, it's removing that part of the video. which I do not want to be removed, which I want to be removed. Okay. The part inside the pink outline is the part that's going to remain after rotor brushing. So this tool is called as rotor brush because it is actually rotoscoping the object from the the raw source or the raw video. I don't want this part, suppose. So over here, we're basically guiding After Effects. And once I'm happy with what I've got, I can press this button over here, freeze. Now it's going to go through it and it's going to intelligently take out it's going to figure out what part of the video I want and what I do not want based on this one guide frame or image, you can say. Okay, Summer has left. Iman, do you understand what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
You can try it out for yourself in After Effects if you want.
Yeah. So like it's doing it for the rest of the frames, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now if I were to just, stop, right? It's going to show me what it's done till now, I think. Hopefully. Okay. Let's shorten it up even more. Let's make it around 30, not even a second. Now if I go from layer, I'm closing down and as you can see, it has removed the background entirely. I don't know why it's glitching. Maybe because I stopped it in between. Yeah. Now I can put something behind it, and when I do, it'll come out, it'll come off as it's the background. It was the background, like I did in the final video.
What if we want to like edit, like in one frame, we do not like how it did
Okay.
automatically. So we want to change that.
So if you want to change that, you have to click on this and you'll have to open the rotor brushing tool again, and then you need to go to that specific frame. Okay. And you need to press freeze once again. This unfreezes the entire thing. Okay. Suppose in this frame, I do not want the, okay. Hold. Okay. So yes, now I can go on to this specific frame and suppose I just decide I do not want him in the video at all. So I can, yeah, as you can see for future frames, he has been removed. Do you understand, Vivan?
Yeah.
Okay. So have you tried it for yourself?
Is there any way to do it just for this one frame?
I mean, after that, if you want to do it just for that one frame, what you can do is you can just cut that one frame out and you can just do it for that frame.
Okay, fine.
Fine. I think that's about it. If you have any doubts, I can take them. One, do you have any doubts?
No, I don't really have any doubts.
Okay. Do you want a project? I'd actually thought of a final project, but not a lot of people showed up today. I actually have a project and I can give you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Can you see the chat box? Or no?
No, it's disabled for us.
So I'll show you what you need to do. So you can actually go and watch this video. I had made this a while back, and you can try to recreate this. Um,
I don't think there's any sound, Swastik.
so
There's no sound.
no problem. I'm just showing him the video.
Okay.
So you can go and watch it on my channel for reference, right? And
Okay.
because I've used UI elements over here, I'll give you the Figma file for it. You can go onto the Figma file and take the design from and take the UI from there. Okay. You need to learn
Okay.
how to use Figma. I'll share this in the WhatsApp group actually. Share this in the
All right.
WhatsApp group. You can figure out how to use Figma by just searching on Google. Basic. I'll share this in the AV editing channel.
Can you share the logo design files as well? The Z
Um,
logo that you use.
you don't need it. Leave that part out. I don't have the files. I don't think I have those files with me.
Okay. I could recreate it as well.
Yeah, I mean, but that's made in Blender, so it's up to you.
Okay.
I'll share the entire final project. And if I think if you're able to make up something good, we'll even give you an induction directly into the club as a video editor. Okay.
Okay, fine. Oh, so
Okay.
I'm supposed to send it to you?
Yeah, you can send it. You can send it to me on my personal window, right? You can message me on
Okay,
WhatsApp or Discord, right?
fine.
So I think that's about it. Thank you, Ivan, for joining. You're the only one.
Thanks a lot.
So okay. If you want to learn anything in the future as well, you can message me on a personal window. Any doubts, any problems, right? Okay.
Okay, fine. Thanks a lot for your
Karthik,
time.
you can stop the recording.